The camera opens with a panoramic view of an upscale neighborhood, showcasing luxury boutiques lined up like jewels in a crown. The vibrant colors of designer store windows draw in pedestrians, their eyes glistening with desire for high-end fashion. As the camera zooms in, we focus on a well-dressed black man walking confidently down the sidewalk. He's in his early 30s, exuding a blend of sophistication and charisma, dressed in a tailored suit that speaks of wealth and success. His name is Marcus, a savvy entrepreneur who has built his fortune through hard work and determination. He's no stranger to luxury. In fact, he frequently shops at exclusive stores. However, today he has a different purpose. With a determined look in his eye, he glances at his reflection in a glass storefront, adjusting his cufflinks and straightening his tie. His resolve strengthens as he approaches the luxury store's entrance, a plan forming in his mind. As he steps inside, the camera captures the opulence that surrounds him. Gleaming marble floors, intricate chandeliers casting a warm glow, and displays filled with designer handbags and exclusive watches. He takes a deep breath, absorbing the atmosphere of wealth and exclusivity. But as he walks deeper into the store, he can't shake the feeling of being an outsider. Despite his elegant attire, there's an underlying tension, a sensation that he's being scrutinized. From the moment he enters, the ambiance shifts subtly. The sales staff, elegantly dressed in their own designer outfits, exchange wary glances. Marcus notices a few of them whispering to each other, their smiles fading as he passes. He approaches a nearby display of luxury watches, hoping to strike up a conversation with a salesperson. He picks up a gleaming timepiece, admiring its craftsmanship, and makes eye contact with a saleswoman. Instead of the welcoming demeanor he expected, she quickly looks away, busily arranging the nearby display, almost as if she's trying to avoid him. Undeterred, Marcus moves further into the store, eyeing an exquisite handbag that catches his attention. He walks over, but as he does, the store owner, a middle-aged white man with an air of entitlement, steps into view. The owner's posture is rigid, and his expression shifts from mild curiosity to unmistakable disdain as he assesses Marcus. "Can I help you?" the owner asks, his tone dripping with skepticism, as if questioning Marcus's right to be in the store at all. Marcus smiles politely and responds, "Yes, I'd love to know more about this handbag. It's beautiful." He gestures toward the item, hoping to spark a conversation that might reveal the owner's true colors. However, instead of engaging, the owner narrows his eyes, crossing his arms. "We have plenty of other customers to attend to," he snaps, his voice laced with condescension. "I'm not sure you'd find anything here to suit your tastes." The words hang in the air, heavy with implication. A wave of humiliation washes over Marcus, but he quickly regains his composure, reminding himself of the purpose of his visit. He knows he has every right to be there, just like any other customer. He chooses to ignore the disrespect, redirecting his focus to a nearby salesperson, hoping for a better experience. As he moves away from the owner, Marcus observes the reactions of other customers in the store. A well-dressed white couple walks by, and the staff immediately rush to assist them, smiles bright and inviting. They engage in light conversation, laughing and sharing stories. Marcus feels a pang of anger mixed with sadness at the stark contrast in treatment. It's not just about being ignored. It's about the unmistakable judgment he faces because of his race. With a steely resolve, Marcus decides to press on. He approaches another sales associate, a young woman with a friendly smile. "Excuse me," he says. "Could you tell me about the materials used in this handbag?" Her smile falters as she glances toward the owner, then back at Marcus. Yes, it's made of high-quality leather," she replies hesitantly, her eyes darting around as if seeking approval from her boss. Just then, the owner interjects, his voice cutting through the moment like a knife. "I think it's best you move along, sir. This is a high-end store, and we cater to specific clientele," he states coldly, a thinly veiled threat behind his words. Stunned, Marcus feels the weight of the owner's prejudice bearing down on him. His mind races with thoughts of indignation and disbelief. He glances at the other customers, who are now witnessing this blatant discrimination. For a moment, time seems to freeze. The atmosphere thickens with tension as Marcus stands there, grappling with the reality of the situation. Realizing he's not going to receive the respect he deserves, Marcus takes a deep breath and walks toward the exit, his heart pounding in his chest. As he steps outside, he takes a moment to collect himself, leaning against the cool glass of the store's exterior. The vibrant world outside feels starkly different from the harsh reality he just faced. As he looks back at the store, he contemplates how many others have faced the same treatment. The injustice ignites a fire within him, a determination to expose the store's discriminatory practices. He knows that this experience is not just about him, it's about the countless others who have been judged by the color of their skin. With renewed purpose, he leaves the scene, his mind racing with ideas on how to turn this painful experience into a powerful lesson for others. Marcus walks away, but he knows this story is far from over. As he leaves the luxury store behind, he's already plotting his next move, ready to shine a light on the bias that still permeates society. Marcus stepped out of the luxury store, the chill of the autumn air hitting him as he gathered his thoughts. The contrast between the opulence of the boutique and the bitter experience he had just faced weighed heavily on him. He could feel the anger bubbling beneath the surface, but he channeled it into resolve. He knew that what had just happened was not an isolated incident. It was a reflection of a systemic issue that affected countless others. As he walked down the street, he replayed the encounter in his mind, the dismissive attitude of the owner, the discomfort of the sales staff, and the way they had fawned over other customers. He thought of the young sales associate who had hesitated when he approached her, and it struck him how the environment had influenced her behavior. It was clear that the owner had created a culture of exclusivity that permeated the entire store. Marcus reached his car, a sleek luxury vehicle that contrasted sharply with the treatment he had just received. He took a moment to breathe, leaning against the hood, letting the crisp air fill his lungs. He reflected on the many times he had been in similar situations, not just in retail, but in various aspects of life, from business meetings to social events. The world had conditioned him to be cautious, to be aware of how he was perceived. He had learned to navigate spaces that often felt hostile, to prove his worthiness time and again. With a deep sense of purpose, he pulled out his phone and started to draft a plan. He wanted to gather evidence of the discriminatory practices in that store, but he knew it would require more than just his word. He needed a strategy that would shed light on the experiences of others who had faced similar treatment, both in that store and beyond. The next day, he returned to the boutique, armed with a hidden camera in his bag. He made sure to dress in a way that reflected his success, a tailored suit, polished shoes, and an air of confidence. He entered the store with a smile, determined to see if the atmosphere had changed since his last visit. Immediately, the vibe felt different. The staff, who had previously looked at him with suspicion, now seemed to be more engaged with customers around him. He noticed them approaching others with enthusiasm, offering assistance, and striking up conversations. Yet, when he walked by, they seemed to ignore him once again. The owner was nowhere in sight, but the shadow of his presence lingered, creating an unwelcoming environment for anyone who didn't fit their narrow definition of a valued customer. Marcus moved through the store, observing everything with a keen eye. He approached a display of high-end accessories, pretending to admire a scarf. As he did, he overheard snippets of conversation among the staff.
"Did you see the new collection?"
one associate said excitedly to another, her tone light and inviting. The contrast to how they had spoken to him the previous day was stark. He wandered over to a section filled with designer shoes, his hidden camera subtly recording everything. A young white woman walked in shortly after him, dressed in a casual yet chic outfit. Immediately, a sales associate approached her, a friendly smile plastered on his face. "Welcome. Can I help you find anything specific?" he asked, his voice warm and inviting. Marcus watched as the associate led her around, showcasing various items and engaging in light conversation. He felt a surge of indignation as he remembered how the same associate had practically ignored him during his last visit. He couldn't help but think about how often people in similar situations felt the sting of discrimination and how many stories went untold. After a while, he approached another sales associate, a young man with an air of casual confidence. "Hi there," Marcus said, his voice steady. "I'm interested in some of these shoes. Can you tell me more about them?" The young man hesitated for a moment, glancing over his shoulder to see if the owner was watching. Sure," he said, his tone shifting from welcoming to cautious. "They're some of our best sellers. Would you like to try a pair?" Marcus felt the tension in the air. The fear of the owner's judgment was palpable, and he could see it affecting the staff's willingness to engage. He decided to probe further. "I've been looking for something special for an upcoming event. I want to make a statement," he said, emphasizing his interest in fashion. The associate seemed to relax a bit, perhaps realizing that Marcus was a potential customer after all. "Oh well, we have some great options for that," he replied, warming up. They began discussing different styles, and for a moment, Marcus felt a sense of camaraderie. But as they spoke, he couldn't shake the feeling that it was all a performance, a temporary shift in behavior due to his presence. After a while, Marcus excused himself, feeling the weight of the experience settle on him. He had gathered what he came for, but it was clear that the store's culture was toxic and deeply ingrained. The discrimination wasn't just an individual act. It was systemic, supported by the owner's blatant bias and the staff's fear of stepping out of line. He left the store feeling a mix of anger and determination. As he walked back to his car, he contemplated his next steps. This wasn't just about one negative experience. It was about creating change. He thought about how he could use social media, community forums, and even local news outlets to share his story and raise awareness. He envisioned a campaign that would not only highlight his experience, but also gather testimonials from others who had faced similar discrimination in luxury retail settings. That evening, Marcus spent hours crafting a post for social media. He wanted to make sure his message was clear. Discrimination has no place in retail or anywhere else. He included a powerful narrative about his experiences, calling on others to share their stories as well. He pressed post, and within moments, notifications began flooding in. People were sharing their own experiences, commenting on how familiar his story sounded. Some shared tales of discrimination in high-end stores. Others recounted experiences in various sectors, restaurants, hotels, and events. The response was overwhelming, and Marcus felt a sense of hope amidst the anger. His message was resonating, igniting conversations about race, privilege, and the need for change. As the evening wore on, he engaged with his followers, encouraging them to join him in holding establishments accountable for their actions. That night, he realized the power of his voice. He wasn't just an individual facing discrimination. He was part of a larger movement, one that sought to challenge biases and demand respect for everyone, regardless of race. His undercover mission had transformed into something far greater, a quest for justice and equality in spaces where they were sorely lacking. And with each story shared, he felt more empowered to take on the challenge ahead, ready to confront the systemic issues that plagued society. As Marcus drove away from the luxury store, he felt a tumult of emotions swirling within him. Anger, frustration, and disappointment mingled with determination as he reflected on the humiliation he had experienced just hours earlier. The owner's dismissive attitude and the staff's reluctance to engage with him were vivid reminders of the biases that plagued not just that store, but society at large. He felt a fierce urge to take action and expose the discriminatory practices that had unfolded before him. That evening, he spent hours composing a thoughtful message for social media. He articulated his experience clearly, detailing how he had been treated when he first entered the store. He described the cold reception from the owner and the subsequent humiliation of being asked to leave. He highlighted how this wasn't just about his personal experience, but a broader reflection of the biases and prejudices that continue to exist in retail and beyond. His post quickly garnered attention. Friends, acquaintances, and even strangers began to share it, amplifying his voice and drawing attention to the issue. He encouraged others to share their stories of discrimination, and the responses poured in. Each new comment filled him with a sense of purpose and urgency, reinforcing his belief that change was necessary. The next morning, he woke up to find his post had gone viral. Hundreds of people had shared their experiences, recounting similar encounters in upscale stores where they felt unwelcome due to their appearance or race. Some shared heart-wrenching stories of being followed by security. Others described being outright ignored or treated with disdain. Marcus felt both empowered and heartbroken as he read through their narratives, each one echoing his own experience. Feeling the momentum build, he reached out to a few local news outlets, eager to share his story and the stories of those who had reached out to him. He explained the situation to a reporter, detailing how the luxury store had treated him and how many others had faced similar discrimination. The reporter was intrigued, and they arranged for an interview that would allow Marcus to share his experience more widely. Meanwhile, the luxury store remained unaware of the growing storm brewing around them. The owner, who had once felt invincibly in his bubble of privilege, was oblivious to the impact of his actions. He continued to oversee the store with the same air of superiority, convinced that his clientele would never question his authority or his right to dictate who belonged in his establishment. He had no idea that his decisions were being scrutinized by a larger audience, nor did he recognize the potential consequences of his behavior. On the day of the interview, Marcus dressed in a crisp, well-fitted suit that exuded professionalism and confidence. He wanted to make a statement, not just about the discrimination he faced, but about the dignity he refused to let others take from him. As he entered the television studio, he was met by a crew that was eager to hear his story. They set up the cameras, adjusted the lighting, and asked him a series of questions designed to capture his experience and the broader implications of racial bias in retail. When the cameras began rolling, Marcus spoke with passion and conviction. He recounted his experience at the luxury store, detailing the initial cold reception he had received and how the owner's blatant racism had led to his removal from the store. He emphasized that this was not just an isolated incident, but a reflection of a larger issue that permeated many retail environments. He urged viewers to recognize that racism exists in subtle forms, often disguised as a mere lack of service or attention. As he spoke, he could see the reactions of the crew and the viewers at home. Many were visibly moved by his story, nodding in agreement as he articulated the pain of being judged by the color of one's skin. His words struck a chord, resonating with those who had faced similar experiences or who had witnessed discrimination in their own lives. After the interview concluded, Marcus felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had shared his truth and amplified the voices of others who had been silenced. As he left the studio, he received messages of support from friends and followers who had tuned in, expressing their gratitude for his courage in speaking out. As the day wore on, he began to receive notifications about a surge of conversations happening online. The news segment had gone viral, sparking discussions about racism in retail and the need for businesses to address their biases. People from various backgrounds were chiming in, sharing their own experiences and demanding change. Marcus felt invigorated by the response, realizing that he had tapped into something much larger than himself. However, amidst the growing support, he knew that the luxury store would not remain silent for long. He anticipated backlash from the owner and potential attempts to discredit his story. He mentally prepared for what was to come, knowing that the fight against discrimination was rarely easy, but that it was a fight worth having. The next day, as Marcus scrolled through social media, he stumbled upon a post from the luxury store. The owner had taken to his platform to address the unfounded allegations made against his establishment. He claimed that the store prided itself on exceptional customer service and that any interactions had been misconstrued. He labeled Marcus's experience as an isolated incident, denying any systemic bias and framing himself as a victim of false accusations. Reading the owner's statement, Marcus felt a surge of anger. The owner had clearly failed to acknowledge the reality of the situation, choosing instead to deflect blame and silence the voices of those who had shared their stories. It was a classic example of how institutions often respond when confronted with uncomfortable truths: denial, defensiveness, and a refusal to engage with the real issues at hand. Determined to counter this narrative, Marcus decided to organize a peaceful protest outside the luxury store. He wanted to make a statement, not just for himself, but for all those who had been treated unfairly and marginalized. He began reaching out to community organizations, local activists, and friends, inviting them to join him in this demonstration of solidarity. As word spread about the protest, the response was overwhelming. People from all walks of life came forward, eager to stand in unity against discrimination. They created posters and signs, calling for equality and respect in retail spaces. The local media picked up on the story, broadcasting information about the upcoming protest and inviting viewers to join. On the day of the protest, a vibrant crowd gathered outside the luxury store, holding signs that read, "Respect all customers," "No more discrimination," and "Equality in retail." The atmosphere was electric, filled with chants of unity and calls for justice. Marcus stood at the front of the crowd, feeling a surge of pride and gratitude for the community that had rallied around him. As he addressed the crowd, he felt a powerful connection to those around him. He spoke passionately about the need for change, urging everyone to hold businesses accountable for their actions and demanding a more inclusive approach to customer service. He shared his story, emphasizing that while his experience was personal, it was part of a much larger narrative of inequality that needed to be confronted. The protest lasted for hours, drawing the attention of passers-by and local media. The store owner, realizing that his actions had consequences, watched from inside as the crowd grew larger and more vocal. The reality of the situation began to sink in. He could no longer operate in a bubble of privilege, and the discrimination that had once gone unchecked was now being challenged publicly. By the end of the day, Marcus felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The protest had not only raised awareness, but had also sparked a conversation in the community about racism, privilege, and the need for systemic change. He knew that this was just the beginning, that the fight against discrimination required continued effort and engagement. But he felt hopeful. As the sun set on the day of the protest, casting a warm glow over the crowd, Marcus reflected on the journey that had led him here. He had transformed a painful experience into a powerful movement for change. He was no longer just a victim of bias. He had become an advocate for justice, standing up for himself and for others who had been silenced for far too long. In the days following the protest, the luxury store became the center of a media storm. News outlets ran stories about the demonstration, highlighting Marcus's powerful message and the growing calls for change in retail environments. The coverage prompted conversations across social media platforms, where hashtags like #RetailEquality and #discrimination in retail began trending. People from all walks of life shared their own experiences, recounting the times they had felt unwelcome or judged based on their appearance. It was clear that the issue was resonating, sparking dialogues that extended beyond the confines of Marcus's original experience. Meanwhile, Marcus found himself increasingly in the spotlight. Interviews poured in from various media outlets, and he was invited to participate in discussions about race, privilege, and the need for accountability in businesses. As he navigated this new terrain, he was determined to ensure that the voices of others were amplified alongside his own. He began collaborating with community organizations that focused on racial equality and justice, using his newfound platform to promote their initiatives and advocate for systemic change. Despite the positive momentum, Marcus was acutely aware of the challenges ahead. He had expected backlash from the luxury store owner, and it didn't take long for it to materialize. The owner, frustrated by the growing attention and feeling cornered, issued a series of statements that downplayed the protest and insisted that his store had always prioritized customer service. He portrayed himself as a victim of a misunderstanding and claimed that the protest was an attack on his business rather than a legitimate call for change. As Marcus read the owner's statements, he felt a surge of frustration. It was evident that the owner was trying to deflect responsibility, avoiding any acknowledgement of the systemic biases that existed within his establishment. This unwillingness to engage in honest dialogue only fueled Marcus's determination to press on. He realized that this fight was about more than just one store. It was about challenging a culture that allowed discrimination to flourish unchecked. Marcus decided to take his advocacy a step further. He organized a series of community meetings, inviting individuals from various backgrounds to come together and share their experiences. The meetings became a safe space for dialogue, allowing participants to voice their concerns, share their stories, and brainstorm ways to combat discrimination in retail and other sectors. They discussed the importance of education and awareness, emphasizing the need for businesses to engage in anti-bias training and to create inclusive environments for all customers. During one of the meetings, Marcus was struck by the story of a local woman named Sarah, who had faced similar discrimination in a high-end cosmetics store. Sarah recounted how she had entered the store, excited to purchase a luxury skincare product, only to be ignored while other customers were catered to. "It was like I was invisible," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I left feeling humiliated and questioning my worth." Inspired by Sarah's story, Marcus suggested they create a community initiative aimed at educating businesses about the impact of discrimination and the importance of inclusivity. They began drafting a proposal for a series of workshops that would educate retail staff on cultural competency, empathy, and the importance of treating all customers with respect. The goal was to foster understanding and change within the very establishments that had perpetuated bias. As the weeks passed, the initiative gained traction. Local businesses expressed interest in participating, recognizing the potential for growth and improvement. Marcus and his team organized a series of workshops that brought together employees from various stores in the area, providing a platform for open discussions and training on how to recognize and combat biases. They invited speakers from diverse backgrounds to share their experiences and facilitate discussions on creating inclusive environments. The workshops were met with enthusiasm, and participants left feeling empowered and inspired. Many expressed gratitude for the opportunity to learn and engage in meaningful conversations about discrimination. It became clear that this was a step in the right direction, a move toward fostering empathy and understanding in the retail sector. Amidst this progress, the luxury store owner continued to dig his heels in. Despite the positive feedback from the community initiative, he refused to acknowledge the need for change within his own store. Instead, he doubled down on his previous statements, framing himself as the target of an unwarranted campaign against his business. He publicly criticized Marcus and the community efforts, insisting that they were misrepresenting his establishment and undermining his reputation. In response, Marcus remained steadfast. He refused to let the owner's defiance deter him from his mission. He continued to promote the workshops and encouraged other community members to support local businesses that prioritized inclusivity. He believed that change could happen, but it required consistent effort and engagement. As the community initiative flourished, the pressure began to mount on the luxury store. Customers who had previously patronized the store started to speak out, expressing their disappointment in the owner's refusal to engage in meaningful dialogue. Many vowed to take their business elsewhere, opting for stores that demonstrated a commitment to inclusivity and customer respect. Social media campaigns emerged, urging individuals to support businesses that embraced diversity and condemned discriminatory practices. One evening, after a successful workshop, Marcus received an unexpected phone call. It was from a producer at a major news network, expressing interest in featuring his story on a national scale. They had been following the developments around the luxury store and were impressed by his advocacy efforts. The producer explained that they wanted to interview him for a segment focused on racial discrimination in retail, highlighting the community initiatives he had spearheaded. Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and nerves as he prepared for the interview. He knew this was a significant opportunity to reach a broader audience, but he also understood the weight of the message he was about to convey. He wanted to emphasize that this was not just about his personal experience, but about the collective struggle against discrimination and the importance of fostering empathy in all spaces. On the day of the interview, Marcus arrived at the studio, feeling a sense of purpose wash over him. As the cameras rolled, he spoke passionately about his journey, the challenges he had faced, and the importance of advocating for change. He shared the stories of others who had experienced discrimination and underscored the significance of community efforts to educate and empower both consumers and businesses. The segment aired to a wide audience, sparking conversations across the country about racial bias in retail. People began sharing their own experiences, echoing the call for change. Marcus received messages of support from individuals and organizations around the nation, further validating the importance of the work he was doing. Despite the increasing visibility, the luxury store owner remained unyielding, continuing to dismiss the growing criticism. In his mind, he was standing his ground against what he perceived as an unjust attack on his business. He sought to discredit Marcus, trying to label him as a troublemaker who was attempting to ruin his reputation. However, the more he pushed back, the stronger the community's resolve became. As the media spotlight shone brighter, Marcus realized that the movement he had sparked was gaining momentum. Local businesses began reaching out to him, expressing interest in joining the community initiative. They wanted to learn more about how to create inclusive environments and engage with their customers in meaningful ways. With each passing day, Marcus felt more empowered. He was no longer just a voice for his own experience. He had become a catalyst for change in his community. The workshops expanded, drawing participants from various sectors beyond retail, including hospitality and service industries. It became clear that the conversation was resonating far and wide, and the desire for change was palpable. As the movement continued to grow, Marcus was invited to speak at various events, sharing his story and advocating for inclusivity. Each opportunity allowed him to reach more people and inspire them to join the fight against discrimination. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that he was making a difference, but he also recognized that the road ahead would not be easy. With newfound confidence, Marcus started brainstorming ideas for a larger initiative, something that could serve as a national platform for advocating against discrimination in retail. He envisioned a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting equality and inclusivity in consumer spaces, focusing on education, awareness, and community engagement. He began outlining a plan for the organization, considering potential partnerships with existing advocacy groups and reaching out to individuals with expertise in nonprofit management. Marcus knew that if he wanted to create lasting change, he needed a formal structure that could sustain and grow the movement he had started. As he worked tirelessly to bring his vision to life, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was on the brink of something monumental. The luxury store owner might still be fighting against change, but the tide was turning, and Marcus was determined to lead the charge. With the support of his community and the growing recognition of the need for change, he felt empowered to continue pushing for a future where everyone was treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their background. As the movement gained momentum, Marcus found himself deeply immersed in the process of establishing the nonprofit organization aimed at advocating for equality and inclusivity in retail environments. The journey was both exhilarating and daunting. He was venturing into uncharted territory, balancing his passion for change with the logistical realities of creating a structured entity. He started by gathering a small team of dedicated individuals who shared his vision. This group consisted of community members, activists, and professionals from various fields, including law, marketing, and nonprofit management. Each member brought unique skills and perspectives, contributing to a rich tapestry of ideas that would shape the organization's mission and goals. They met weekly to discuss strategies, share progress, and brainstorm initiatives that would elevate the conversation around discrimination and inclusivity. Marcus quickly realized that building a nonprofit required more than just passion. It demanded strategic planning and a clear vision. Together, they set to work drafting a mission statement that encapsulated their goals. The organization would focus on raising awareness about discrimination in retail, providing educational resources to businesses, and creating platforms for marginalized voices. They aimed to foster a culture of respect and understanding within the retail sector, ensuring that all customers felt welcome and valued. One of their first initiatives was to create a series of educational materials that businesses could implement as part of their employee training programs. They collaborated with experts in diversity training to develop workshops that would address topics such as unconscious bias, cultural competency, and effective communication. The goal was to equip retail staff with the tools they needed to recognize their biases and treat all customers with dignity and respect. As they developed these materials, Marcus leveraged the relationships he had built during the community meetings and workshops. He reached out to local businesses, inviting them to participate in pilot programs that would implement the new training materials. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Many business owners expressed eagerness to engage in the initiative and recognized the importance of fostering inclusive environments. In parallel with these efforts, Marcus continued to advocate for change in the luxury store that had initially sparked the movement. He was determined to hold the owner accountable for the discriminatory practices that had occurred. With the support of his team, he drafted a formal letter outlining the concerns of the community, demanding that the store undergo diversity training and commit to creating a more inclusive shopping experience. As they prepared to send the letter, Marcus felt a mix of anxiety and hope. He understood that this was a pivotal moment, one that could potentially open the door to meaningful change within the luxury store. The letter detailed not only the specific incidents of discrimination that had been reported, but also emphasized the broader implications of such practices on the community. He articulated the need for accountability and a commitment to fostering an environment where all customers felt welcomed and respected. Once the letter was sent, Marcus mobilized the community to apply pressure on the store. They utilized social media to raise awareness, encouraging supporters to share their experiences and to demand change from the owner. The campaign quickly gained traction as more individuals joined the conversation and expressed their outrage over the store's refusal to acknowledge its shortcomings. Amidst the ongoing advocacy efforts, the nonprofit began to take shape. They officially filed for nonprofit status, allowing them to seek grants and funding to support their initiatives. Marcus felt a surge of excitement as they reached this milestone. It was a testament to the collective effort and determination of everyone involved. While navigating the complexities of establishing a nonprofit, Marcus faced challenges that tested his resolve. Fundraising proved to be a daunting task as they sought financial support to sustain their programs and initiatives. They organized community fundraisers, leveraging local businesses to contribute and rally support. The events brought people together, creating a sense of solidarity and purpose. However, despite their efforts, securing larger grants remained a struggle. Many funding organizations required extensive documentation and a proven track record, which Marcus and his team lacked at that early stage. Frustrated but undeterred, he leaned into the strength of the community, finding creative ways to generate support. He launched a crowdfunding campaign, sharing the organization's vision and mission with a wider audience. The response was heartwarming. Individuals from diverse backgrounds stepped up to contribute, recognizing the significance of the cause. As donations poured in, Marcus felt a renewed sense of hope. Each contribution represented not just financial support, but a validation of the work they were doing and a commitment to fostering change. With the momentum building, Marcus organized a launch event for the nonprofit. He envisioned it as a celebration of the community's collective effort, an opportunity to showcase the initiatives they had developed, and a chance to galvanize support moving forward. They secured a local venue and invited community members, business owners, and media representatives to attend. On the day of the launch, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. As attendees arrived, they were greeted by engaging displays that highlighted the organization's mission, upcoming programs, and the impact of community support. Marcus took the stage, feeling a mix of nerves and exhilaration as he prepared to address the crowd. He spoke passionately about the journey that had led them to this moment, sharing personal anecdotes and emphasizing the importance of standing together against discrimination. He acknowledged the challenges that lay ahead, but underscored the strength of unity and the collective power of the community. The crowd erupted in applause, energized by his words and the shared commitment to fostering inclusivity. As the event continued, attendees mingled and shared their stories. Marcus witnessed firsthand the connections being forged as individuals found common ground in their shared experiences and aspirations for change. The sense of camaraderie was palpable, reinforcing the belief that they were all part of something larger than themselves. In the weeks that followed the launch, the nonprofit began to gain recognition within the community. They received requests from various businesses eager to participate in training programs and workshops. Local media coverage continued to shine a light on their efforts, further amplifying their message. Yet, amidst this growing success, the luxury store owner remained unyielding. He continued to dismiss the community's demands, labeling the nonprofit as an attack on his business rather than a legitimate call for change. His defiance only fueled Marcus's determination. He realized that while progress was being made, there was still much work to be done in challenging the entrenched biases within the retail sector. Marcus and his team decided to ramp up their advocacy efforts. They organized a series of public forums, inviting community members to share their experiences of discrimination in retail settings. The forums provided a platform for storytelling and connection, allowing individuals to feel heard and validated. As these gatherings grew in popularity, Marcus recognized the need to expand their reach beyond the immediate community. He began collaborating with other advocacy organizations across the region, pooling resources and expertise to create a united front against discrimination. Together, they launched a campaign aimed at raising awareness of the issue on a broader scale, leveraging social media, local events, and community partnerships. With each passing week, Marcus felt the movement gaining traction. He was struck by the resilience of the community and the collective commitment to fostering change. People were rallying around the cause, eager to take action and support businesses that embraced inclusivity. In a significant turn of events, Marcus received an unexpected phone call from a major retailer that had been following the developments surrounding the luxury store. The retailer expressed interest in partnering with the nonprofit to develop a comprehensive training program that could be implemented across its various locations. This opportunity was not only a validation of their efforts, but also a chance to create systemic change on a larger scale. Excited yet cautious, Marcus engaged in discussions with the retailer, outlining the vision for the training program and the importance of involving the community in the process. He emphasized the need for collaboration and inclusivity in developing the materials, ensuring that diverse voices were represented. As negotiations progressed, Marcus felt a sense of hope. The potential partnership could serve as a model for other retailers, showcasing the benefits of prioritizing inclusivity and understanding in their customer service practices. He envisioned a future where businesses across the country would adopt similar initiatives, transforming the retail landscape into one that celebrated diversity rather than perpetuated bias. With the partnership taking shape, Marcus and his team focused on refining their training materials and preparing for a series of pilot programs. They gathered feedback from community members, business owners, and retail employees, ensuring that the content resonated and addressed the real concerns of those who had experienced discrimination. As the pilot programs launched, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was witnessing firsthand the power of community-driven change, where individuals came together to challenge the status quo and advocate for a more inclusive future. The response from participants was overwhelmingly positive, with many expressing gratitude for the opportunity to engage in meaningful discussions and learn from one another. Throughout this journey, Marcus remained steadfast in his commitment to hold the luxury store accountable. The ongoing defiance of the owner fueled his determination to keep the conversation alive. He engaged with local activists and community leaders, strategizing on how to continue pressuring the store to adopt inclusive practices and undergo diversity training. As Marcus Balan said, the demands of the non-profit and the fight for accountability. He reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He had transformed a painful experience into a powerful movement, igniting a conversation that extended far beyond the walls of a single store. With the support of the community, he had carved out a space for dialogue and action, proving that change was not only possible, but within reach. As the movement continued to grow, Marcus remained committed to his vision of a world where everyone, regardless of their background, felt valued and respected in retail spaces. He knew that the fight against discrimination was far from over, but he also understood that with perseverance, dedication, and a united community, they could create a brighter future, one where inclusivity reigned and the voices of all were heard. As the nonprofit began to take root and flourish, Marcus found himself reflecting on the profound impact of the journey he had undertaken. The movement was gaining national recognition, with various media outlets covering their initiatives and the powerful stories shared by community members. While the luxury store owner remained entrenched in his position, Marcus recognized that the real change was happening on the ground, in the hearts and minds of the people. One particularly poignant moment occurred during a community forum when an elderly man named Mr. Johnson shared his experiences. With a voice quivering with emotion, he recounted a time in the 1960s when he faced blatant discrimination in a department store while trying to buy a suit for his son's graduation. "They wouldn't even let me in the door," he said, tears welling in his eyes. "I walked away feeling humiliated, like I wasn't worth the fabric of that suit. But today, I'm here, and I want to fight for a future where no one else has to feel that way." His words resonated deeply with everyone in attendance, illustrating how the legacy of discrimination still echoed through generations and underscoring the necessity of their work. Inspired by Mr. Johnson's story, Marcus decided to expand their outreach efforts. He began organizing storytelling sessions within the community, encouraging individuals to share their experiences with discrimination. These sessions not only served as a means for healing, but also as a way to educate others about the insidious nature of bias and its impact on people's lives. The shared narratives became a powerful tool, fostering empathy and understanding among diverse groups within the community. In tandem with the Storytelling Initiative, Marcus sought to establish partnerships with local schools. He understood that educating the younger generation was vital in dismantling biases and fostering a culture of inclusivity from an early age. He approached several schools with a proposal to integrate lessons on diversity, empathy, and social justice into their curriculums. The response was overwhelmingly positive, with educators eager to engage students in meaningful conversations about race and discrimination. As the partnerships developed, Marcus and his team collaborated with teachers to create age-appropriate lesson plans and materials. They included interactive activities, discussions, and opportunities for students to reflect on their own experiences and feelings. The lessons encouraged open dialogue and challenged students to think critically about the world around them. Marcus was particularly excited about a program they launched at a local high school, where students were given the opportunity to engage in community service projects focused on inclusivity. They organized events in which students collaborated with local businesses to implement training sessions for employees, helping them understand the importance of creating a welcoming environment for all customers. The students took ownership of the initiative, leading discussions and sharing insights from their own lives. The impact was profound. Not only did the employees learn valuable lessons, but the students also developed a sense of agency, understanding that they could make a difference in their community. As the school programs took off, Marcus realized that the momentum of the movement was reaching a tipping point. People from neighboring communities began to take notice of the nonprofit's work. Organizations and advocates from different cities reached out, expressing interest in replicating the model that Marcus had developed. They sought guidance on how to implement similar initiatives in their own areas, recognizing the need for inclusive practices in retail and beyond. This surge in interest motivated Marcus to plan a regional conference focused on inclusivity and community engagement. He envisioned it as a gathering where activists, educators, business owners, and community members could come together to share ideas, learn from one another, and strategize on effective ways to combat discrimination. The conference would feature keynote speakers, workshops, and panel discussions, creating an opportunity for collaboration and inspiration. Planning the conference was a massive undertaking, but Marcus and his team dove in with enthusiasm. They secured a venue, reached out to potential speakers, and began promoting the event within the community and beyond. As the date approached, excitement buzzed throughout the region. People began registering from various cities, eager to participate in the discussions and workshops. On the day of the conference, the venue was filled with an electrifying energy. Attendees mingled, exchanging stories and ideas, united by a shared commitment to fostering change. Marcus felt a sense of pride as he observed the diverse crowd, representing a cross-section of the community. It was a testament to the work they had accomplished and the connections they had forged. The conference kicked off with a powerful keynote address by a renowned civil rights activist who spoke passionately about the importance of grassroots movements in creating systemic change. Their words resonated with the audience, serving as a reminder of the collective power they possessed. Following the keynote, participants broke into smaller workshops, where they engaged in discussions about practical strategies for promoting inclusivity in various sectors. Throughout the day, participants shared their insights, successes, and challenges. One workshop focused on creating inclusive marketing strategies, while another delved into the importance of representation in leadership roles within businesses. As ideas flowed and connections were made, Marcus felt a deep sense of hope. It was clear that the movement was not just localized, it was gaining traction nationwide. In the aftermath of the conference, the momentum continued to build. Marcus received numerous requests for collaboration from organizations across the country. He was invited to speak at events, sharing the lessons learned from their initiatives and encouraging others to take action in their communities. As he traveled, he witnessed firsthand the ripple effect of the movement, with people inspired to challenge discriminatory practices and advocate for change. However, amidst this success, the luxury store owner remained steadfast in his refusal to engage with the community's demands. He dismissed the growing movement as a nuisance, insisting that his store would not bow to outside pressures. This obstinacy only fueled Marcus's determination. He knew that the fight for accountability was far from over. As public sentiment shifted and more people rallied behind the cause, the luxury store faced mounting pressure. Customers began to boycott the store, opting instead to support businesses that demonstrated a commitment to inclusivity and social responsibility. Social media campaigns highlighting the store's refusal to address discrimination gained traction, drawing attention to the owner's reluctance to engage in meaningful dialogue. In response to the growing outcry, the owner finally issued a statement, attempting to downplay the situation while maintaining his stance. He framed the protests and community initiatives as attacks on his character and asserted that he had always treated his customers fairly. But his words rang hollow. The community saw through the facade, recognizing that true change required accountability and a willingness to listen. As the movement reached a fever pitch, Marcus knew that it was essential to keep the conversation going. He organized a public forum at a local community center, inviting the luxury store owner to attend and engage in a dialogue with community members. The invitation was framed as an opportunity for the owner to listen to the voices of those who felt marginalized and to explore ways to create a more inclusive environment. When the day of the forum arrived, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Community members gathered, eager to express their concerns and share their experiences. Marcus opened the event, welcoming everyone and reiterating the importance of open dialogue. He emphasized that the goal was not to attack the store owner, but to foster understanding and find common ground. After a brief introduction, the luxury store owner entered the room, visibly tense. He took a seat at the front, surrounded by a diverse audience that had come to hold him accountable. Marcus facilitated the discussion, encouraging attendees to share their stories and ask questions. As voices rose, the tension in the room grew palpable. One young woman stood up, recounting her experience of being ignored and followed in the store simply because of her appearance. "I just wanted to buy a gift for my sister," she said, her voice trembling. "But instead, I felt like a criminal in your store. How can you not see how this affects people?" Her words struck a chord, resonating with many in the audience who had experienced similar treatment. The store owner shifted in his seat, attempting to respond but stumbling over his words. He offered vague reassurances about customer service, but failed to address the specific issues raised. As the discussion continued, it became evident that the owner was struggling to connect with the community, dismissing the emotional weight of the testimonies being shared. As the forum drew to a close, Marcus invited the owner to share his thoughts. He attempted to convey the message that the community was willing to work together towards solutions, but the owner's response felt inadequate. He offered platitudes without committing to any specific actions, frustrating many attendees who had come seeking genuine engagement. Despite the owner's reluctance to take responsibility, the forum served as a pivotal moment for the community. The outpouring of stories reinforced the urgency of their mission and the need for continued advocacy. Participants left the event with a renewed sense of purpose, motivated to keep pressing for change and to hold businesses accountable. In the weeks following the forum, the nonprofit continued to thrive. The storytelling sessions expanded, and more schools adopted the educational programs Marcus had developed. The community rallied together, sharing their experiences and supporting one another in their quest for inclusivity. As Marcus reflected on the journey thus far, he felt a deep sense of gratitude for the community that had come together to fight against discrimination. The movement had evolved into something much larger than he had initially envisioned, with individuals empowered to take action in their own lives and communities. However, Marcus also knew that the fight was far from over. The luxury store remained a symbol of the work that still needed to be done. He remained steadfast in his commitment to hold the owner accountable, understanding that true change would require persistence and resilience. With each step forward, Marcus felt the weight of responsibility. He was not only advocating for his own community, but also for all those who had faced discrimination in retail environments. He envisioned a future where everyone could walk into a store feeling valued, respected, and welcomed. A future where the color of one's skin would not dictate their shopping experience. Fueled by the support of the community and the momentum of the movement, Marcus committed to continuing the fight. He envisioned expanding their efforts beyond retail, addressing discrimination in other areas of society, such as housing, education, and employment. The goal was to create a comprehensive approach to inclusivity that would empower individuals and foster understanding across all sectors. As the movement continued to grow, Marcus recognized the importance of self-care. He understood that the work could be emotionally taxing, and he needed to ensure that he was taking care of his own well-being. He began incorporating mindfulness practices into his routine, seeking balance amid the demands of activism. In the end, Marcus remained hopeful. He believed in the power of community and the ability of individuals to affect change. With each story shared, each initiative launched, and each conversation sparked, they were slowly but surely dismantling the barriers of discrimination. As he looked to the future, Marcus knew that the journey was ongoing, but he was ready to face the challenges ahead, fueled by the unwavering support of the community he had come to love.